And Tracy, you're running the meeting tonight in Shane's absence, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, just wanted to double check. Whenever you're ready, I am
Okay.
ready.
Yeah, let me just get my camera on. So just welcome everyone and thank you for being here and coming out and supporting your community and being involved. It is critical for neighborhoods and greatly appreciate it. And we're going to jump right in. I believe Officer Murray is here to give the police update.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, go ahead.
We got a couple of programs that's going on that we're trying to help the community with, far as homelessness is concerned. We come out with an employment packet that we put together that we actually hand out to homeless parties in the area. That packet is designed where we already contacted different businesses and organizations in the area that actually hire felons and people with records and stuff like that, so we can help them get jobs and help them better themselves and get them off the street. And also Park Hill's having a problem with the RVs and stuff. So we're trying to streamline that process and get things adjusted according to the guidelines put out by City Council. So bear with us on those things. Crime is about normal for this time of year. And we also have a program coming out where we're trying to implement some things to help combat auto thefts. So that is in the process of being approved. Once it's approved, and we'll be pushing that out as well. I'm gonna stay on here the entire meeting. So if anybody have any questions, please place them in the chat. That's all I have.
Sure. And Officer Murray, I just have a couple of questions for you.
Yes,
I know you may not be able to speak on it, so if you can, I completely understand, but there were 2 shootings this week, one at 16th in Colorado and one at 17th in Claremont. Are you able to comment on those?
No, ma'am. Any active investigation,
Okay.
especially involving shootings, I can't comment. Sorry.
Okay. Nope, that's okay. I understand. Thank you. Are there other questions? If so, you can go ahead and unmic yourself. And if not, we'll jump right into the community update, Lana.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll try not to be too long-winded. I've got a lot of slides today. Okay, just to sort of wrap this all up, we ran this fundraiser in the month of, was it February or March? And we collected around $550 from the community, and we matched that. So we, a couple weeks ago, donated $1,100 to the fundraiser for the victims of the Marshall fire. So just wanted to let everybody know that that's been completed. Thank you all so much for your support. Okay, it's event season, you guys. So the first things we have coming up are the Park Hill yard sale, which is going to be Saturday, May 21st. That's from 8 to noon. If you want to hold a yard sale, go to greaterparkhill.org, go to the events tab and yard sale. You can register your house. That way we put you on the map. You'll include a small description of what you're selling so that prospective buyers, shoppers can take a look at the map, see kind of where they want to head to, what's near them, plan a route, you know, if there's something specific they're looking for or whatever. So, you know, it's a totally free event. It's just, we just coordinate a big neighborhood yard sale. So check that out. On the same day, we're going to be doing our garden in a box distribution. So this is really meant for novice and or lower income gardeners that want to start a vegetable garden, a small vegetable garden. So we provide seedlings and some instructions and resources and seeds and things to help folks get a garden started in their yard. So if you're interested in being a recipient of a garden in a box, you can, again, go to our website. And this one is under our food programs and the garden in a box program. Or you can swing by the office when we're open or call the office. I'll drop the phone number into the chat box and we can help get you registered. We can also help get you registered for the yard sale in that same manner if you prefer. And pre-registration is required. So if you do want to participate in this, then make sure you are signed up or we might not have enough supplies. Okay, then looking ahead to June, mark your calendars. June 12th is the 2022 Garden Walk. We're expecting tickets to go on sale on May 1st, which is coming up sooner than later. So look for those online and also at various retail outlets throughout the city. So there'll be more information about this on parkhillgardenwalk.org. We're updating the website right now. So by like next week, it'll be pretty current. And also there'll be information in your next month's newspaper about the garden walk. And looking forward one more month to the 4th of July parade. You can again mark your calendar. It's always on the 4th of July at 1:30 p.m. But registration just opened for participants and it's free. So if you want to march in the parade, if you have a club or a dance studio or a band or anything of interest, a car club, whatever it is, email parkhillparade@gmail.com. Having some issues with their website currently. Otherwise, you'd be able to just jump on there and fill out a form. But go ahead and email that email address and you can participate in the 4th of July parade. Our emergency food pantry, we've got a few things here that we need currently. I won't bore you with reading them out loud, but you can see we've got some current needs in our non-perishables. And just a reminder that we always appreciate fresh foods. So if you're ever around at a time that we're doing food intake and you can pick up some bread, milk, cheese, produce, whatever from the store, our clients always really appreciate that. You probably noticed the Denver water work has ramped up again for the season in various parts of the neighborhood. You can always get information on what they're doing at Denver Water's website, but we've also started posting weekly, bi-weekly, the updates for the neighborhood. So we're receiving these from Denver Water and sharing them with you all so that we'll give you a little insight as to what exactly is going to be happening in the neighborhood over the coming 2 weeks. So you can avoid those streets, or it may affect you. It may impact you really directly. It might be on your street upcoming where you have to move your car and such. So follow us on Facebook and sign up for updates from Denver Water as well. Our Park Hill the Beautiful committee was gracious enough to put together a little blurb that we sent out in our last e-blast, just as a reminder that street sweeping started this past week, and that trash collection days have changed, which puts some of you in a situation where your street sweeping might butt right up against your trash day. So if you ever are in that situation, know that you can place your bins on the curb, the apron of your driveway, or on the opposite side of the street. Please don't place them in the way of the street sweeper so that your street gets properly swept. And keep an eye out for some news from us. We're hoping to resume in-person meetings here soon, guys. So we have a little bit of planning to do, but feel like it's probably time to get back in person. Hoping to do some sort of a hybrid meeting whereby you can still watch it online if you can't make it, but more details to come. Just wanted to kind of give everybody a heads up in the next couple months here. Look for that information. And you may have noticed that our building was surrounded by a fence for the last 3, maybe even 4 weeks. No, we're not going anywhere. Our building's not being torn down. We got a new roof, yippee. They're 99% finished. The fence came down yesterday. The dumpster is still there, but it will be gone soon, as will the porta potty. So if you've been wondering what the heck is going on, that's what's been going on. We have a new roof on the building, which is very exciting. And then just wanted to remind everyone, if you're probably already on our mail list if you're at this meeting, possibly, but if you're not, we promise we don't spam you. We send 1 email a month from basically our office and 1 from the newspaper. It has the meeting agenda on it, all kinds of fun notices, event and program updates, and then the newspaper sends out their monthly online version of the paper. So make sure you're on our list. And again, you can follow us on Facebook for additional tidbits of things that we don't always include in our e-blasts and newsletters. Okay, that is all I've got. I don't know if I kind of sped through that. I don't know if anybody has questions about any of that, but feel free to ask. Otherwise, I'm done.
Okay, and is Alicia and Jim here?
Yes, hi, good evening.
Hi.
Thanks for having us. I'm Alicia Hammett. I'm with Shopworks Architecture. I'm a planner. And I have Jim joining me with Senior Housing Options. They're our client, and we're looking to rezone their property at 1901 Eudora, which is the Park Hill Residences or Park Hill Assisted Living. We are looking to reconfigure they're looking to reconfigure their building. They're not going to be expanding the footprint of their building at all, but they're looking to just maximize the efficiency of their floor plan to get have 4 additional units. So right now their zoning allows 36 units, and they're looking to increase their density to 40 units total. Again, the footprint of the building would be changing, but it's causing us to rezone or amend this current zoning, which is a plan unit development. And so I thought I'd let Jim just kind of talk about senior housing options, what you all do, and then I can talk a little bit more about the rezoning application and where we are in the process and what all the details will be. So Jim, I'll pass it to you.
Thanks, Alicia, and thank you for having us today. Senior Housing Options has been in existence since about 1980. It used to be called Ecumenical Housing, was actually started by a group of churches in Capitol Hill. And in the 70s, they purchased 2 buildings, the Olin Hotel, which is behind the Capitol, and the Barth Hotel, which is at Blake Street and 17th. And at that time, we sort of diversified our focus to both assisted living as well as affordable housing for seniors. And the Park Hill project, we actually purchased in 1996 and redeveloped it at that time. So it's starting to age and show its age. But more importantly, as Alicia said, we would like to reconfigure the rooms within the facility itself. As an assisted living facility, we have certain staffing ratios that are essentially 1 staff person per 10 residents. And with 36 residents, it doesn't make it quite as efficient. In addition, we have a couple of shared units that we would like to reconfigure so that they're more private and more easily leased to people who would like privacy. In addition, and for part of this plan, we would like to improve the space that we would use for an adult day program in the basement of the building. So as Alicia said, we're not moving up or out, but merely reconfiguring inside. And at this time, if we can move forward with this project, of course, we'd like to improve the facility and invest in the capital so that we have improvements that will keep it viable and operational for another 20 or 30 years. So it's about a $2 million construction project. We don't quite know exactly how long it will take, but we do plan to renovate while the residents are in place, which does sometimes extend the time needed for that. The vast majority of people who live there are on Medicaid, and so they pay very minimal amounts from their own pocket. And we do have some, on occasion, we'll have private pay residents, but even the private pay residents are paying on the order of less than $3,000 a month. So it's very, very affordable compared to most assisted living facilities. So I'll stop at that and see if you have any questions.
Yeah, if anybody has questions, feel free to just unmic yourself.
Hey, Jim. You mentioned potentially having, would it be you don't currently have an adult day program at Eudora, but you would consider turning the basement into an adult day program?
Thank you. Yes, we currently don't have an adult day program at this facility. And our intent would be to collaborate with another organization to actually provide that service initially. But our basement doesn't really allow the best use of it right now. And we would want to create bathrooms that are more ADA accessible and have a small kitchenette down there to be able to provide lunches. Again, within assisted living, we have centralized services. So there's a central kitchen on the first floor, but we'd want to have a small satellite facility on the lower level.
Do you have an elevator down to the basement?
We do, yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you for the question.
And it's worth noting that adult daycare is a currently permitted use on the site. So that when none of the uses that are being proposed with this amendment would change. They'd all be the same permitted uses. It's just this weird thing where we're capped at 36 units and we're just trying to bump it up to 40 and then keep the parking the same. We're not trying to expand the parking lot. So we have to accommodate for that as well.
Quick question. Have you spoken to the surrounding residents around there?
So we actually have a neighborhood meeting that we're hosting, and you're all invited. And all the adjacent property owners are invited on Tuesday, April 26th. It'll be at St. Thomas Episcopal Church from 6 to 7 p.m. And so that's when we'll be talking directly with adjacent property owners.
Great. That's perfect. Thank you.
Well, and Tracy, the only thing I would say, Jackie Shumway, is having had my kids go to Park Hill Elementary. I know Ken Burdett is on this, the principal of Park Hill Elementary now. And my kids have gone there. I travel 19th all the time. And I, a lot of times am working, like going door to door and that. They are lovely neighbors. I'm just telling you, I think they're great. It's that, and it's right in that block that's also Blessed Sacrament. Am I crazy? Is that right? And it's, yeah, and they're just lovely neighbors. And this sounds like a good addition, something, because we do have a shortage of availability for aging folks within Denver's boundaries.
Thank you, Jackie. I met you years ago. I don't know if you remember, I was with the Arthritis Foundation at one time. So it's good to see
Jim,
you again.
I do know you, Jim. I know. We taught Tai Chi for you guys.
I did want to mention, since we were talking about gardens earlier, that we added some garden boxes just about 2 years ago. That was a project by the Lion Project. And so those are used very heavily. And so we have a little bit more outdoor amenities there.
Are there other questions? There's a funny comment in the chat for you, Jim, if you want to look at it.
We would love to have you on the waiting list, of course. We all need to think about that at one point in time or another.
Yeah, paying off my mortgage is my retirement plan, and I live in an alley house that's at grade. So, but once I get up in age there, it'd be nice to stay in the community.
Of course.
And downsize.
We'd love to have you.
Thank you.
Are there other questions for the team? Okay, we very much appreciate you both being here to present this. You're presenting to the community at the end of April, and was there an ask from the board that you needed?
Yes, we would love to have a letter of support, if possible, that we could bring to our planning commission hearing date whenever that's set. It's not set yet because we haven't filed our formal application yet. So we're waiting for our neighborhood meeting at the end of the month. And then based on neighborhood feedback and all our public outreach, we'll file our formal application probably the last day of April to the city, and that will start the formal process.
Okay, and when you file that, do you need the letter that day? Because it'd be nice to hear from the neighbors before the board takes a vote. And our next meeting is the first Thursday in May. So I think we have time if that's doable for you.
Yeah, we're willing to wait. I think
Okay.
that's okay, right, Jim? If we wait, it would just be waiting that following week.
I think it's, I'd have to look at the schedule again. I know that the city has set meeting dates, and I don't recall exactly when that might be.
Well,
and We can certainly work with you on that. If something doesn't align, let us know, but Lana, I don't remember, was there information sent in our email about this particular thing to everybody?
Yeah, so there was two letters in your board meeting materials. One of them is basically a narrative of the project. And then the other is a draft proposed letter of support that Alicia provided to us. So the ask is basically laid out in those letters already. And yeah, so if the board, if you all decide you want to just hear what happens at that neighbor meeting, then you would have all the information that you need at that point already to then move forward with a vote.
Yeah, and we could probably after that talk to Shane and maybe even take, if we had to do an electronic thing. I can't promise that. But I
It
think
seems reasonable since
Okay.
given that everybody has the letter already and now has seen the presentation. Alicia, can you remind what's the date of the neighborhood meeting again that you're doing?
It's Tuesday, April 26th.
Okay.
Oh, somebody asked what time.
From 6 to 7 p.m. in the Great Hall.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, an in-person meeting. Okay.
It is an in-person meeting.
Okay, so Alicia and Jim, if that's okay with you, we'll just wait till we get the community feedback so we have all our information. And then we will work to take a vote on a letter of support if that's doable for you both.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you for being here. Really appreciate the outreach.
Well, thank you for having us. We really appreciate
you
your
all.
time.
Very much appreciated. Take care.
You too.
Bye.
Lana, what's next on our agenda?
We have got the discussion of the new sidewalks at Quebec and 17th. So we've got Dana Hoffman and Steve Laudeman. Did I say that right, Steve? Laudeman?
Laudeman, yes, thank you.
All
That's
right.
correct.
Well, we'll have both of you take over and you're good to go.
Awesome. Thanks. Hi, folks. Glad to be here to share more about this project. Yeah, I'm Dana Hoffman. I'm with obviously the Department of Transportation Infrastructure with the city. We tend to shorten that acronym to DOTI, so don't be confused when I use that term. I do have a presentation which I can share. Do I have, I think I just have that capability. Okay, great.
Yep, go right ahead.
Okay. Let's make that bigger for you guys. Are you seeing the large screen or the small screen?
We've got the small with your next slide on it.
Okay. Here we go. Let's try that. How about now?
Same thing.
Oh, try that one more time.
Yep, you're good to go.
Okay. Thanks
right.
for your patience. So we wanted to chat with you guys today about an ongoing project that will include portions of Quebec and 17th Avenue. And these are pedestrian and mobility improvements, focused improvements. So I'm sure most of y'all have been on both of these streets, but the current conditions on Quebec is that it is a fairly dangerous street. Unfortunately, it's on our list of high injury network roadways in the city. And that essentially is about 27 streets that make up more than 50% of the crashes in the city. So as we look to do improvements, these streets often rise to the top to make sure we can increase safety across the city. And one of the things that make Quebec Street so unsafe is that there are large segments of missing or inadequate sidewalks. And it's also a bus corridor. There are similar conditions on 17th Avenue as well. As the two streets cross, there are large sections of 17th Avenue that also do not have any sidewalk. So we have a project in design that is designed to enhance that safety and provide those mobility improvements. And this is what's included. I have a map next to help folks who are more visual in nature, but the project includes adding 2.1 miles of new sidewalk, or sort of filling the sidewalk gap. So that's between 12th Avenue and Montview on Quebec, and then between Monaco and Rosemary on 17th. And along with those sidewalks, there will also obviously be the ramps that are ADA accessible at every intersection that we touch. And we'll also be upgrading several of the bus stops along Quebec as well to make sure there's appropriate pad and access at those locations. And then the signal itself between 17th and Quebec is quite old. So we have the opportunity to upgrade that upgrade that signal at the same time. So it's a little sort of smarter in nature, helps operations, and also helps pedestrians cross more easily. So that's sort of the scope of the project we're proposing. We're sort of midway through design. This is the map of that same information that I shared. I'm happy to pass along this presentation as well, and it's on the web page. But this shows all of the locations that are proposed sidewalks. The blue is where there is actually existing sidewalk today in sort of small pockets. And then you see the bus stops that we're proposing to improve. And there is the signal that we'll be upgrading as well. I wanted to just give a little bit of background on how we got to these two corridors. I mentioned that Quebec in general is on the high injury network, but going back, we have a lot of missing sidewalks throughout the city of Denver. And when we worked through and created the Denver Moves Pedestrian and Trails Plan, I think that document is about 4 or 5 years old. But there was pretty extensive outreach and a lot of research done for that plan, and it really helped highlight both how many sidewalks we still need to fill, how important it is to the communities that we get these sidewalks in place. And following that, we essentially set up a system to prioritize those sidewalks since we don't have enough funding to tackle them all at once, or the manpower. So through the Elevate Denver bond, which was passed in 2017, we set up a program and used this prioritization process that you see on the screen over on the right, that sort of inverted the pyramid there. So the prioritization is essentially based on these things. So tier 1 is sort of the highest priority locations are all located along that high injury network I was talking about. And then moving down the tier, there are also other high frequency transit stops, access to important destinations like school campuses and parks. And then there's other sort of high priority destinations that go into play. And then eventually we'll get to all of the remaining sidewalks in the city. This is kind of what the sidewalks will look like, just to give you a sense. This is still fairly preliminary design, but we do have some layouts of what they're going to look like. So this is for Quebec Street. It's going to be a detached sidewalk for the most part, which means that there's a lawn or separating space between the sidewalk itself and the street, which creates a little more comfort and safety for the pedestrian. And then the sidewalk itself is proposed to be 8 feet wide. And that is based on our department's policy about width of sidewalk based on both the classification of the street itself and the vehicle volume. So I have that listed here as well. And we've gotten some questions about how we determine the widths of sidewalks. There's a lot of existing sidewalks that are 3 feet. In downtown, some of our sidewalks are 15 feet. Our current policies say that arterials with pretty significant traffic should have 8 feet wide sidewalks. So that's where Quebec is today. And as I mentioned, we have this buffer space. There are a few little stretches where we can't fit everything within the city's owned right of way. So we aren't including them in those locations. But by and large, this is what the sidewalk will look like on Quebec. And then this is similarly what it will look like on 17th. It's pretty similar, but just a few things to note. There are a lot more trees on 17th. We are working really hard to tweak the design to work around trees as much as possible but it is likely that there are several trees that will have to be removed, that'd be unavoidable to do so. So we'll get those details as we move further into design. And then although 17th actually is also classified as an arterial, mostly because of the volumes further west in this section, volumes are fairly low. So they'll be reverting to our minimum standard sidewalk, which is 5 feet, but still having that separation from the street with the tree lawn there. Just a few notes here. This is sort of what that intersection will look like with the updated signal. And I can answer questions on that if needed. And then we are still working through the design, and that will get us to a final project cost estimate. We have some amount of money now to go out and do construction, but it is likely we'll have a little bit of a margin or gap there. So we're going to be looking to gain that additional funding through our this year's CIP, but it also could mean we end up phasing the construction of the project depending on what that final cost looks like. We've had a couple meetings so far. We had a public meeting and also met with some other key stakeholders who may be doing work in that area or changing like on the campus there. And then we do have several opportunities to talk through. We'll be reaching out very directly to people who live along the corridor and business owners along those corridors. But you can always reach out to us directly. The website is there as the bit.ly shortcut, and I can throw that into the chat. And then we have office hours, and there's also a hotline number as well. So lots of ways to get in touch about this project as we move through design, and then we'll be notifying people when construction comes around. So we are hoping to kick off and work through the winter by the end of this year, but bulk of the work may end up being next year, just depending on how contracting works out. I tried to keep that quick and sweet, but I'm very happy to answer questions or go back.
Dana,
I'll
thank
jump
you for
in.
that.
Hey,
Sorry, go ahead.
It's Leslie Twarogowski. I'm an at-large representative for this neighborhood of Park Hill that surrounds Johnston Wales in this Quebec and 17th Avenue intersection. And I want to just say that me and my neighbors have been advocating for these sidewalks for as long as I've lived here, which is 22 years. And I want to express my gratitude towards Dana Hoffman for getting this funded through this 2017 GO bond money. And I know that this was not an easy task to get this funded, given all the push and pull of the widening of Quebec and past plans. And so I just wanted to express my gratitude and say how excited I am for this to come. And so thank you. And thank you for letting me jump in and do that.
Thanks again, Leslie, for being so involved. We appreciate it.
Hi, Dana. I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, my property is in the corridor that that you indicated, and I actually have several questions because it directly impacts my land. First of all, I think it's wonderful that we'll be adding sidewalks. It would be a great improvement. There are a lot of accidents that happen there and a lot of people that fall, and we certainly don't want that. But I'm just concerned about the size of the project because I have landscaping, sprinklers, and trees and things planted there. And also wanted to ask about my particular property. My driveway is right off of Quebec, so I have to pull out onto Quebec, and I'm concerned about when the construction activity starts. It's already extremely challenging to get out because the traffic is quite busy there. So I wonder if you have any thoughts on how we might be able to make that a little bit easier. And then I also have a question. Sorry, I'm just going with all my questions about the trees. If there is a tree lawn there, will we be able to pick the trees, or how does that work?
Yeah, those are good questions. So the first thing I'd say is on the landscaping side and your all of the stuff that you have in that space, including the sprinklers, that's something that maybe we could really dig into individually. either through office hours, or you, because you have property along the corridor, you will get what we call a Dear Neighbor letter. So you're going to get a letter once we get a little further in the design that really highlights with great specificity what they think the design is going to look like in front of your property. Typically, depending on the age of the sprinkler, and I can let Steve step in and talk about this a little more as the construction project manager, but we can work with most folks to get those replaced easily. And Steve, I think you can also speak a little bit better to how we think traffic control will roll out. We probably don't have answers to that yet, but that is a really good point about the constant stream of traffic. We're pretty familiar with that in Quebec, so we will certainly be working with the contractor to make sure we have appropriate diversions and safety so people can get in and out of their driveways. Steve, do you want to speak a little bit more to that, or just direct that to more specific conversation?
I can, thank you, Dana. I can speak in general terms. We are, as the plans are developing, we are seeing that some of the properties have some landscaping features that do go into the city right away. There's some fences and flower beds and things like that. And the way we're going to put the plans together is that we will attempt to preserve those features as much as possible. And we'll work with the adjacent property owners to perhaps relocate those features. There might be cases where a fence or a landscape feature is just in the way and has to be removed, but we are going to work with owners on a case-by-case basis. As far as sprinklers and irrigation, we have run into this before, and our approach is to reconfigure the sprinkler system so it works with the sidewalk. We're not just going to, cut a line and leave it. We'll work with the adjacent property owner to make sure the system is functional. As far as driveways and getting onto Quebec, was your question specific to during the construction phase, or?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's already quite difficult I pull in and then I back out onto Quebec, and I'm obviously right near the Quebec and Colfax intersection.
Right.
And it's quite difficult to pull out even with no construction there. So I'm concerned that with construction going on and barriers and all of the things that you have when you're doing a roadway construction project, it might be nearly impossible for me to enter my property. I don't have another way to enter it at the moment. All
I can say is that there are going to be some challenges. So I can't sugarcoat it. The best news I have is that I hope and I think that the contractor will try to move block to block pretty quickly. So hopefully it won't be all messed up for like a long period of time. Unfortunately, I can't get into specifics because we really do rely on the contractors to how they want to manage the traffic and the construction safety and the lane closures. And so once we have our contractor on board, I'll know more, but I can't really get into specifics at this point, unfortunately.
Okay, thank
Steve,
you.
yeah, Jennifer, I'm not sure the question got answered about you being able to pick your tree. And I wanted to add on to that question with sprinkler systems. Would the city be helping those neighbors put in a line to those trees in the tree lawn to help support the growth of those trees?
That is a very good question. And let me take that back to my design team.
Okay, and then Jennifer's question about being able to pick trees, and obviously I know there's a list that's appropriate for the area and in tree lawns, but will they be able to get to decide?
I can take that back to city forestry. I
Okay.
unfortunately don't know the answer to that. I do know, and some of you might already know, that the city has a right-of-way tree program, and we can provide trees to go into the tree lawn between the sidewalk and the street. Currently, we are not planning to plant trees in the tree lawn right now, but if an individual property owner wants to talk to city forestry, I believe they can work out something, and they do have certain species of trees available. And city forestry will be involved with the project because we are working close to some trees, and we are unfortunately going to have to remove some trees. And so city forestry will have a representative on the project. So they'll be available for the neighbors to talk to them.
I did notice that on the presentation, the slideshow, it said free tree program for owners. I'm not sure exactly what that program is, but I'd love to know more.
Yeah, I can share some information. How would I get that to the group? Is there a person I could email or?
Lana,
Yeah, I'm gonna drop my email address into the chat right now. And if you want to send it to me, then I can disseminate it.
Okay.
and Jennifer, did you want to drop your email as well, just so you can get that directly? And I know you're probably talking with your neighbors as well.
I am. Some of them are actually on this meeting, so I'll jump off and let them talk.
Yeah,
Jennifer.
if any of you want the follow-up information, I just dropped my email in the chat. You can email me and I'll sort of capture my own list. Or if you drop your email address in the chat to me now, I'll take it down. And I'll make sure you get all the follow-up from this meeting.
Yeah, and we definitely want to hear thoughts, concerns, comments now, but for the various specifics in front of your property, as I mentioned, you will get a letter with a lot of details, specifically, on your door about 3 months before we are expecting to go to construction. And we'll have, we often, our team, Steve is really good. We'll go out and look directly at each property if there are a lot of questions. So some of those detailed what is happening to your particular grade or landscape, we can speak to in more detail when that happens. I see some other hands up. I don't remember what order they were in though. Anton, I see your hand up in front of my face, so I'll just call on you if that's good.
Okay, I'm not sure whether or not I was, like you said, next in line or not, but I don't mind. I'm a resident. I'm not a homeowner myself, right next to Quebec. And I don't mind the idea of the sidewalks being right next there, and I definitely could see how that would be safer. But is it already been concluded that they're going to be 8 feet? Must they be 8 feet wide? So this is more a general question about that. Or is there leeway possibly in the width of the sidewalks? I'm thinking about like snow and ice in the wintry season and having to shovel that off of the sidewalks.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. So by and large, our standards are pretty specific that on arterials, that's what we install is 8-foot sidewalks. I would say occasionally we divert from that because a lot of time it is because we're like going around a tree or there's something otherwise unavoidable. But because of the speeds and volumes on Quebec and the fact it's a high injury network, I think it's very unlikely that we're going to divert from that 8-foot in most cases. So I hear your pain of shoveling. There is also the Angels program. If it's difficult for you to get out there and do that, there are volunteers. I participate in that program who will go out and help, shovel your sidewalk. But yeah, it would be a little bit of a wider sidewalk on Quebec.
And I'm going to call on Nancy if you want to unmic yourself.
Sure. Hi. Thank you. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Great. All right. So having been an ADA coordinator for a small state agency, I fully support adding sidewalks in South Park Hill. In the year and a half that I've lived here, I have actually fallen multiple times when I've been walking my dog because there aren't sidewalks, and instead I've had to walk on pretty icy streets. So I understand that there's a need. I understand that there's a really important reason for adding sidewalks. However, I don't agree with the 8-foot sidewalks which are being proposed. I've driven up and down Quebec many times in the few weeks since I learned about this proposal. I actually haven't found anything that is an 8-foot sidewalk between 12 and 36. Even the sidewalk outside of Home Depot on Quebec Street is only 5 feet wide, and I stopped and I measured it. So I disagree with that particular requirement for this area because I think it really is overbuilt. I watch, because I'm retired, I watch people walk up and down the street. There aren't that many, certainly, but I really don't feel that the volume of traffic, of foot traffic or wheelchair traffic, granted there isn't any right now, along Quebec is really enough to justify 8 feet. I understand that that is what the city says that arterials should have. However, I see it as a waste of revenue because it's overbuilding where there isn't really the demand for it. I also am not excited about a tree lawn because right now the people that I bought my house from put stones, gravel in that area. And I don't really want to maintain a tree lawn, so I'm hoping that there is some flexibility where I don't have to put in trees or other vegetation because I see it as something that will be killed because of the sand, etc., that's put down on Quebec Street. So I don't think it's a great environment for growing plants or for beautification. I know also that the 8 feet was something that was identified as a safety issue. However, I did ask Dana for data on crashes between people and cars along this stretch of Quebec. I didn't get anything back. So I'm wondering, is there really much data on how many people and cars have been in accidents, not car to car, people to car, along this area to really justify 8 feet? And I will stop now and let Dana answer my questions.
Yeah, Nancy, I must have missed that part of your question. That's a really good question. And I can bring up that data that we have. We have a lot of crash data that we can pull up very quickly. My guess is that we do have ped crashes on Quebec. I know that from previous work. Most of those are really when people are attempting to cross the street more than they are, someone coming up on the lawn and hitting them. So it usually is related to comfort for pedestrians and I forgot what I was going to say. So in general, I think that is more related to comfort, but there is a safety component as well. But that being said, I will take this back. Steve and I can take this back to leadership. If there is a lot of concern about that, if it doesn't seem to make sense with the volumes of folks, we can go take a look. But typically those standards are pretty inflexible. So we'll bring that comment back, and I will follow up with you. I think I have your email still on what the crash picture does show. It's good for us to have that on hand. In terms of the tree lawn, Steve, maybe you can answer that better than I. I think that there's some flexibility about what gets placed back in the tree lawn. So whether it's a sod or a rock mill or whatever, is that true?
I can think of one other property in Southeast Denver where we had a similar situation, and we worked with the property. We were gonna seed an area with native seed, and she requested we put. She had some river rock at another location on her property, and she requested we put that in. So based on that, I would say there is flexibility on working with individual property owners to modify what goes into that tree lawn.
Nancy, did that cover everything?
Yes, I still disagree with the 8 foot, but I'm not getting a sense that is variable.
Okay. I've got a question in the chat and a couple of hands raised. I'm gonna go to Jeff Hammer. If you want to mic yourself, Jeff, go ahead, and then I'll ask the question from the chat, and Jackie, I'll get over to you in just a moment.
I got a couple contracting questions. Will the design documents be available for the homeowners prior to putting the contract on the street? or is the design gonna be locked by the time you go out for contracting?
Steve might know that better than I. We can certainly share a conceptual level, Jeff. We have sort of a layout that can very much change because of the level of design we're at. But we could share that in more detail for you in front of your house, just so you can get some expectation. I do think typically we are going out to a contractor about the same time as we're sending out those letters, because that's the stage at which we have more clear estimates of what it's going to look like. So I think when you do get that letter with the final details, I do think it's going out to contract. But another thing to know is that it's still possible to make some changes. There's sort of field level changes that happen that the contractor can do with city approval. So even when you have final design, often we're making tweaks out there in the field if something comes up.
Are you guys gonna release the contract specifications to the homeowners as well?
I don't see why not. I think it's already a public document, so we can just make sure that's easy for you guys to find.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I would only provide a clarification on that. We had a similar question come up this morning on another project, and my only hesitation is that it is a bidding process, and we don't want information to get out prior to the bidding process, because we need to keep the bidding process. We need to maintain the integrity of the bidding process. That being said, I went to my supervisor and I said, hey, there's neighbors on this project who want to see what we've designed. And she's going to take it to management and see if it's okay for us to share the plans. I'm certainly willing to do it if I get the okay from the higher ups. So stay tuned.
Thank you.
Dana, the question in the chat is, if we already have a sidewalk in front of our house, will you redo them to these specifications?
Yeah, so depending on where they are, probably not. So we are updating every intersection's ADA, so the cross ramps at those locations. But the funding that we got through the bond is actually very specific, in that we aren't really able to build sidewalk, even if the existing sidewalk is inadequate. It's only for gaps. So there might be an exception in here, depending on where you are. I don't know, Aaron, maybe if you give us your address, maybe there's an exception there. But generally speaking, from that map I showed you, there are some segments on both streets where there is existing sidewalk, and we're by and large not touching that except at the intersections.
And just one more question in the chat, Dana, do you share your bid docs in plan rooms?
I can take that one, Dana.
Okay.
So we advertise through the city's bidding process. I don't believe we contact plan rooms, but plan rooms, I believe, on their own initiative can obtain the documents and provide them to their subscribers. So we're not opposed to that. We don't prohibit it, but we don't actively go out and provide plans to plan rooms, as far as I know.
Okay. So I'm a construction project manager for Jeffco Public Schools, and I don't actively share them with plan rooms either. But if they ask me, then I do. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's
we don't invite the whole world to bid on it as far as general contractors go.
Right.
But they're welcome to use any sub they want to. And
I need to back
concern about of distributing everything out into the world.
And I need to back up a little bit too. I'm not even 100% sure exactly how we're going to procure construction for this project. It might be an open bidding process.
Okay.
On smaller projects, we do have several on-call contractors that are already pre-qualified to work for the city. And we might just present the plans to 3 of those contractors and get bids in more of a closed process. So Yeah, we just haven't really made it that far in the decision-making process.
Sure. It's not, yeah, I mean, we have our purchasing procedures regarding, how the value of the project, and we don't do public bids, but based on the value of the project, you just have to formally invite more contractors that are pre-qualified. So, but we just don't require pre-qualified subs. But anyways. So if
Thanks,
people
Bern.
actually want to read the specs, more power to them.
We're counting on you, Bern, to do that. That would be great.
Oh, I hate specs.
Bern, was that it?
I'm done, thank you. I won't-
Okay. And Jackie and Louis, I am going to get you to both. I'm trying to answer the get the neighbors' questions. So just bear with me just a sec. So there is a question. Do homeowners receive a decrease in property taxes? Also, how about a case where there's a sewer line problem as it relates to these new sidewalks? Dana or Jim or Steve, sorry, if either of you could answer that, that'd be great.
I can take a stab at the property tax question. And my response is going to be that we are working only in city right away. We're not working on private property. So my presumption would be that our project wouldn't have any effect on property taxes. Now, as far as a sewer line problem, I think we probably want to talk to the property owner specifically. Typically, sewer lines are they can be anywhere between 3 and 7 feet deep, and we are not going to be doing anything that deep. Our excavations will be in the 6 to 12 inch range, so I don't think we'd be getting anywhere near any sewer lines.
Okay, Steve, thank you. I'm going to jump over to Jackie.
This is perfect, Tracy, because I'm checking off all these questions. People just kept asking them, and it was great. Very aware neighbors. I'm very pleased with the questions they asked, but I did want to suggest both Leslie Twardowski and I have been very active kind of over the years in hoping this would happen. And I was just going to say that let's really kind of form a subcommittee over this to make sure it happens, because Steve and Dana just seem like they're so caring about wanting to make this happen. And there's going to be a change in leadership at the city level. And and I know, granted, that's not directly your I mean, you guys are employees of the city, but let's just make sure this goes really well, because I hear the concerns and we just don't want this to be a nightmare for people. We want this to be a good, positive thing that we all come back and go, yay, yeah. So I'm going to offer for both Leslie and I. Leslie, tell me no. Anyway, but I think that we both would be happy to really help keep an eye on this. And that's as mine is as chair of Park Hill the Beautiful. Yeah.
All right. Thanks,
Jackie, I won't tell you no. I won't tell you no.
Thanks, Leslie.
I think going forward, it's very important to think about the administration changes. And I think, Jackie, that's what you were getting at, is the understanding that this came somewhere within the city processes from an administration that's going to change over the next few months during construction. So I want to thank you, Jackie, and Nom Henderson as well, for always supporting this mission. And if I might suggest, Dana, that we look at the data that has made these decisions. I heard what you guys said. You said the data supported 8-foot wide sidewalks based on volume, but the data didn't support like a left turn signal off 17th based on volume. So what I'm hoping to do over the next couple months is refine this, because it sounds like the neighbors are amenable to sidewalks, but maybe 5 feet might be more ideal than 8 feet. And could we use that cost savings to apply to left-hand turn signals on the east and westbound portions of 17th turning on to Quebec? I'm hoping that there's room for that discussion, but what I have enjoyed hearing today is that most of our neighbors are welcoming of these sidewalks. let's not make perfect the enemy of good. Or maybe I meant that the other way around. I thank you for this effort. And I think with some fine tuning, we can come to a project and a solution that's going to be fantastic. And thank you again for the neighbors who've supported this over the years. And thank you again, Dana Hoffman.
Thanks, Leslie. I'm going to jump over to Louis. Louis, go ahead and unmic yourself.
Hi. Current configurations of parkways in the city is typically sloping them away from the sidewalk and into the curb, causing both rainwater and sprinkler water to just run off the parkway right into the curb, which is a tremendous waste of water. There is a school of thought out there that a lot of places are adopting of trying to retain water in the parkway before it runs off into the sewers. I wondered if there was any thought given to that on this project.
Lisa, are you talking about like bioswales and that similar type treatments, or otherwise having particular style?
There are a number of different ways that it's done, and a lot of people have been experimenting it with trying to retain that water in the parkway as long as possible, instead of it just running right off to the sewer. And, you know, water conservation is a big issue in Colorado these days, and I think it might be interesting to look into it.
Yeah, it's a good question. We do have a green infrastructure team that looks for opportunities when we're otherwise putting infrastructure in to see if they can, you know, tag on and do something worthwhile. Projects I've seen in the past use a lot more space than we have available in the right of way for these projects, but I think that's something that Steve and I can go back and talk with the green infrastructure team and see if there could be a good fit. Thank you for that suggestion.
I invite you over to my house and see what I've done in regard to that.
Oh, might have to take you up on that.
Okay.
Yeah, and this
everybody knows where to find me.
And this is Steve. I would only second what Dana said, and thank you for the recommendation, Louis. But I would only reiterate what Dana said, which is we are trying to limit impacts to adjacent properties, and limit impacts to the right of way adjacent to the adjacent properties. And so we're going to try to work closely to the street, and it gives us a very small margin to work with changes to drainage or other features. So I think the possibilities are probably relatively limited on this particular project.
So Steve, I hear what you're saying.
I would tell you it's a very simple fix, and I'd love to talk to you about it.
Okay, maybe we can follow up separately.
Yeah, I do think Louis brings up a good point. The area also suffers from some flooding, and it's not always where the water lands, it's where it goes. So certainly looking at every opportunity would be appreciated.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Are there other questions for the team? I don't see any other hands up. If not, Dana and Steve, we really appreciate you taking the time to come and update the community. This is an important project, so thank you very much.
If I had just a few more minutes, I might want to just bring up one more thing.
Sure, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, thank you. I saw a comment come up on the chat about the previous version of the Quebec project, and Dana, of course, has more background on this than I do. But as a lot of you probably know, there was a larger project a few years ago to widen Quebec into more of a 4 or a 5 lane configuration. And it's my understanding that that project is dead and is not coming back to life anytime soon. So I don't want people to think this is like a phase 1 of a larger project. Our intention is to just build the sidewalks, and for the foreseeable future, that's what Quebec's going to look like.
Thanks for that clarification, Steve.
Yeah, you bet.
If there are no other questions, I don't want to limit anybody on this, it is an important topic, but we'll jump into community matters. So for community members who are here, if you have questions, comments, announcements, please just raise your hand or unmic yourself and jump in.
Tracy, do you mean on any subject?
Absolutely, Les, go ahead.
Oh, hey, thanks for recognizing my voice. I'm just, I'm gonna hold up a postcard I got today. This is from CPD. This is a proposed zoning modification for 1895 North Quebec and 1800 North Oneida. And I hope you can see this, but the meeting is April 20th, 2022. This is to allow for food preparation and sales, commercial use. And this is largely a current use. The Johnston Wales kitchens are now the kitchen network. And as far as I'm concerned, we have no beef with them. We love having them. They're great neighbors. I don't know what this little box is, and I'm gonna find out, but I just wanted everybody on the call to know that there is this rezoning business in the offing. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't ask me any follow-up questions. I just got the postcard today.
Perfect. Thanks for that update. I had no idea about it, so I appreciate that as well.
Yeah, we actually, Colette and I actually just emailed the community planning about this like yesterday, and I'm trying to find the email really quickly. But I will send their response out to you guys about what the waivers were on those parcels on the rezoning relating to the use of the kitchens and things like that. So I'll send that out to the whole board.
Okay, perfect. Other announcements? If not, we can go into the March minutes. I believe we have enough here for a quorum to vote.
Tracy, Jackie, just real quick, since Maria is not on this, I just wanted to real quickly say thank you to her for hosting our block workers kind of meeting that we had. We're starting to move forward on some interesting things with that. So I want to just tell people thank you. It was Tracy and Shane was able to make it, and Shanta, and who was it? Maria, me. Who else was there? Was anybody else? Am I missing them? Tracy? It was a good meeting. So. We covered a lot of stuff. So we're working on that on the block work. So just want to let y'all know we are moving forward.
Great. Thanks, Jack. Well, I believe we have a quorum, correct, Lana? We have enough? Okay, so is there, I'm assuming everybody got the minutes. If so, if there is a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Okay, is there a second? Heather is seconding. Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving the March minutes? Just Heather's hands up. Lana, you just can't see her.
Okay, I'm gonna call off your name per usual as I check it off the list. I've got Sandy, Nam, Rick, Kevin, Jackie, Bernadette. My gosh, my screen is jumping around like crazy. Jim, Tracy, Brenda, Melissa, Leslie. Did I already say you? No, Leslie, Lewis.
And Heather, she's just out.
And Heather, sorry. Yep, Heather. Kevin, did I see you? Yeah, you made the motion, so of course you're in favor. And Heather, you okay? Okay, if I missed you, speak now. Okay, those are the ayes. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 ayes.
Perfect. That's what I had counted as well. Are there any no's? Any abstentions?
Just me,
Okay.
I think.
Oh,
yeah.
Amy,
I
sorry.
wasn't there, so.
Thanks, Amy.
Thanks, Amy.
Thanks.
I was just ready to move forward. Sorry. All right,
Great, that's
it.
everyone. Thank you.
All right. Great. Is there anything else?
Since we just have a minute, I just wanted to just express how much I really enjoyed this edition of the Park Hill News, the April edition. I mean, it's always great. I always like reading it, but I don't know, this one was just like, it was particularly good. I really enjoyed reading all of it. And one of my favorite parts is the column by the 8th grader. I forget where her name was. I should have had the newspaper handy, but I really enjoy her opinion column. She's just a very refreshing kind of, I don't know, very talented person. And yeah, I just wanted to kind of shout out the Park Hill News. It was just I read it cover to cover and really enjoyed all of it. And I'm just really looking forward to all these events that are coming up too, and getting involved with them, and really excited about in-person meetings. So yeah, just kind of wanted to throw out some good vibes.
Great. And thank you. Yes, it's the best team in Denver. So thank you. Anything else?
The only thing, I have a hand up, but I just want to tell you, Tracy, two things. We're working on this, guys, is the alley cleanup. We'll let you'll see, look for it. It's all going to be coming out. Everybody's been missing each other. It's been a busy, busy time. That was the one thing. Second thing is several of you have asked about being on the block worker thing. I think the decision I wanted to let you know was that I think we were trying to work with the group we had, start with that, but we are going to do another meeting. I'm assuming it's okay. Tracy, Maria isn't here, so she's kind of the chair.
I mean, right now, Shane had picked that committee with Maria, so the committee's set for right now.
Yeah, for right now, but that we will definitely let everybody know. And if you have some input, certainly.
Can I just hi, this is Brenda. I'm on the committee, and
It's me?
I think it's broader than
I'm pulling a saber night.
Yeah, go ahead, Brenda.
Oh, I'm sorry. Some of the impetus, and I admit I kind of was a bit of it behind, was not just about the block worker, but about really just more inclusive. I'm new on the board, and just more inclusivity about involvement of Park Hill, north of Martin Luther King, east of Monaco, just to how we can improve that, and so that's kind of the impetus. So it's not solely focused on the block worker.
Great, thanks, Brenda. Other announcements from our neighborhood? Any, Leslie?
I think it's worth noting that the redistricting ran through, and our Park Hill is divided now between District 8 and District 9. And I think it's really important to talk about it, because in the coming year, in the coming months, we should be planning on hosting District 8 as well as District 9, as well as at-large candidate forums. This is not something we need to talk about further tonight, but just to have in your minds in the months going forward.
Great, thank you.
And Tracy, one last thing. I just want to tell y'all a really cool thing happened for me. On Monday morning, Kara DeGette's oldest sister, Diana, called to ask me to nominate her to be U.S. Congresswoman for this next round on the ballot. It was such an honor. And I just wanted to say it was kind of cool. Yes, of course, she's on the ballot, but I just wanted to tell you all how honored I was. Isn't that cool? I thought it was neat. I just had to brag. It was just an exciting thing. So just
that's awesome. You. Congrats.
Yeah. So are we still on community stuff or board stuff?
We can go to board stuff. Sometimes it gets melded all together. So I think that happened when we didn't have any.
Maybe our non-board attendees have dropped off.
I think that has happened. Yes.
Well, there's still some who aren't, but that's fine. Can I ask a newbie question? Because like with the roof question, people answered online like that payment is okay with me. That new price is okay with me. Is that, are those emails considered official board votes, or is it only when we get together in this forum that official votes are made?
Yeah, Leslie, that's a really great question. So regarding the roof, we had kind of set the line of the heads up that, that roof may cost more. We may have to come back to you, but we're also on a little bit of a time gun. So we had kind of painted that picture. It is preferred that we kind of get together for a vote, but sometimes there is a time limit that doesn't allow us to do that. And we have all the information we need where, okay, you guys have the last piece of information you asked for. Can you please let everybody know where you are? So, and we try to also give, just like the rezoning earlier this evening is, yes, everybody got the materials in advance. A new piece of information tonight is that there's going to be a community meeting. We'd like to hear some outcome of that before we place a vote. And on that one, it looks like we're going to have time to come back to another community meeting for a vote, but sometimes we just don't. So, but we
I
try to
might
make.
chime
Fair
in
enough,
quickly,
fair
Tracy,
enough.
just from what
Yep.
I've seen, like logistically in my time here, is that because our existing bylaws don't completely address your question, Leslie, it's generally like defaulted to the board chair and or the executive committee to make the call. If we need to take a vote over email, then it is legitimate and they would just make that call if it was necessary.
And
Okay, thank
did
you.
can I ask one thing? Did we all on those kind of things? And I think it's wise, and I think most people did this. Is it's wise to respond to all so everybody else sees? Does that make sense? So it's not just put on one person. That's normally you wouldn't want to respond to all, but on something like that you would. And I think we did.
We did.
I think so too.
Yeah. But best practice is to do it in person or over this wonderful Zoom tool we all now have. So. All right, anything else? If not,
Well,
I enjoy,
I-
go ahead.
Wait, as far as board things go,
Uh-huh.
being the secretary, I will be absent next month. So I need someone to cover for me.
I can cover for you, Bern.
Yeah, you want to take meeting minutes?
You know how good I am at not doing that, but sure. Just give me the template before and I'll do the best I
I
can.
will. Okey doke. I'll get it
Okay.
all set up for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry about the disaster you're going to receive.
I won't care. I will be.
I'll do my best.
I'll be in England, finally.
Hopefully you're going somewhere fun, Bern.
I am. I'm going to England. It's the 3rd year in a row that I've rescheduled it.
Awesome. We
So,
want you to have a great time. Rick, I think you've been raising your hand there.
Oh, there he is.
Hey, Lana, can you help unmute Rick?
Oh, there he goes.
Rick, I'm gonna ask to unmute you, but you have to like, there you go.
Am I unmuted now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay. I don't know how to raise my hand like some of you are doing. But I have a few questions that I'm concerned about. I'd like to know if there's anyone here involved enough to know what's happening with the Park Hill Golf Course. I attended the sham sessions of looking at 3 different options for including open space, park space, with residential developments and commercial developments. And I don't know what happened with that. I haven't seen a report. I don't know how that's being carried forward. It's obviously run by the city with an investment in having it go in that direction, despite the fact that we voted against that. So is there anybody who could say anything to that?
Well,
It's an update.
Sure, Rick, I know Sandy used to sit on the committee and Ken Ho from West Side is also here. You're both, Sandy, I don't know if you're in a position to speak. I don't know if there's anybody else on tonight who sits on that committee. I don't see anyone, so I don't want to presume. But so Sandy, if you want to, or Ken, you're more than welcome to mic yourself.
Hi, Tracy. Unfortunately, I am no longer in a position. I had to leave because of a work commitment. And, I was kind of under the assumption that we would be allowed to replace me like other organizations were allowed to do. But we were kicked off. So, yeah, it was pretty pitiful to see that although other organizations and who had members on that committee who had to leave because of other commitments, they were allowed to replace or to find replacements. However, SOS was not, and we are the only organization that was not given that same opportunity. So no, unfortunately, I mean, Rick, I too was on the same sham committee meeting, that supposed community meeting a couple weeks ago. But other than that, I don't know what's happening with the steering committee. Sorry.
Okay, and Nam, thank you for posting. Rick, if you look to the chat, Nam posted a link to our website with some resources there as well. I can't speak that they're up to date. I have not reviewed them myself.
We haven't made an update in probably a month or so, maybe more. Definitely not since that community meeting with the breakouts and stuff last week. We've not made an update. I haven't heard anything back from that either.
Yeah, it looks like January of this year was the last update.
That's a long time. Sorry, everybody.
I mean, you know,
if anybody's got updates for me, I'm happy to post them.
Yeah. Ken, I see
Yeah,
you're
I'm
on.
looking at it.
Okay.
But
There's
nothing-
also on the Denver website, the City of Denver website, they have, you can attend the steering committee meetings as an observer if you like. I've been attending most of those. I didn't attend the last one though, because I opted to attend the community meeting instead as well, where they showed the different options. And so there's appears to be a bygone conclusion by the city that the community wants some development on that land, despite a lot of evidence to the contrary. That's not really being acknowledged. So on the city's website, they do have a Park Hill Golf Course engagement plan. And on here, I was actually just looking at it earlier today. Apparently there's going to be a second survey that's going to be sent out. So if you remember the first survey, caused a lot of drama, very problematic. And then I guess there's going to be another survey. So that's just what I'm seeing on the city website right now. Steering committee is going to keep meeting all the way through, this says through the third quarter of 2022. And then we'll have another couple of community workshops, I guess, coming up as well. So, and then along that time, there's community navigator conversations. I don't know anything about those. Any updates or anything. I remember a series of community navigator conversations that happened previously, but I'm not sure about what's going on right now. So yeah, it's still marching forward, and their plan is to, the larger plan is to, right now we're refining recommendations according to the city, and then we'll have the community review a draft plan, and then there will be legislative review and a public hearing, and then finally they intend to put something on the ballot, which is required by 301.
So are we taking a stand on any of this?
The last stance that I know of that GPHC took was to support 301. And of course, we have our survey that we did that demonstrated that 3/4 of Park Hillians prefer to keep the land as open space. And that's all I know about our current stances. I know many people also attend the meetings regularly too, both the steering committee meetings as observers, even though we can't participate really. They do have a short period of public comment during, sometimes it's at the beginning, sometimes it's at the end. Usually it's about 10 or 15 minutes where you can do public comment, but you can't really interact with the steering committee meeting during that time. So yeah, appears to be marching forward to a ballot initiative.
Which ballot initiative? I thought we already had that.
We do, and what the passage of 301 means that in order for the conservation easement to be lifted to allow development on the land, there has to be a citywide vote to approve that, in addition to approval by the city council. And then, sort of aside to all of this is, of course, the conservation easement, whether or not that can be lifted, and whether it would require by state statute a judge to independently conclude that it is impossible to continue the purposes of the conservation easement. So the ballot initiative is required before any development can occur on that land. And according to this timeline, they intend to put something on the ballot.
So we're waiting to see what the city proposes as a ballot issue.
Yeah, And you can participate in the community meetings. You can, you know, you can talk to city council members about it. Because at some point the city council is going to have to vote on this too. And this is just my personal perspective, but I just don't see that they've really been that involved in this issue. Or at least I haven't noted a lot of involvement from most of the city council members. So I think it is probably about time that, you know, we grab their ear as community members to let them know about this process, because it seems to just be barreling towards this conclusion of development, despite so much opposition to that. Totally just personal perspective here, but that's what I know.
Well,
Amy, that was
Tracy, did you want me to answer any questions? I am here.
Ken, hold on just a second. Let me let Rick finish,
Kenneth,
and then I'll have you
sure.
come on, Ken. Thank you.
Kenneth, yep.
I don't like being in the dark about this. And I hear that there's a lot of information out there, and it's possible to participate in some kind of dialogue. And it's all run by the city, or is it run by the city with West Side as well? Ken, you can answer that, I think.
It's a city process.
I've heard that before.
Well, you asked a question, you asked an honest question. I gave you an honest answer, Rick. So thanks for asking the question. I answered it. It's a city process. And, you know, again, I'm just providing answers without additional commentary there.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
So what guarantee, if this is developed, what guarantee is there that there is a grocery store that's affordable, that affordable housing and commercial properties with affordable rent are guaranteed? Is there?
Yeah, that's a great question, Bernadette. There will
contract?
be a written, legally binding agreement between us and the city called the development agreement. And there's currently a group of community members who are doing a community benefits agreement that will also be legally binding.
Okay, because that's, I mean, those that, I mean, there are
And we've
people.
been consistent about the existence of those agreements for a long time. And we understand that you guys need additional assurance around that. And
Yeah.
so it's not just a good neighbor agreement or anything like that. There will be a legally binding development agreement and a CBA.
Okay, because that's, I think the people in the adjacent residents that are a fan of developing the Park Hill Golf Course are expecting.
Yep,
like,
and a lot
really,
of those
like,
people, a
this
lot
is-
of those people are involved in the community benefits agreement
Yeah, like
conversation.
they're expecting this development to cure their woes. Really, that they're gonna get a grocery store, they're gonna get a place to have business, like they're gonna get a place to live. If we
We've been hearing that consistently as well, and
Yeah.
that's why we want to have it as part of the plan. As we we've heard consistently from a lot of people around the neighborhood, and we want to honor those agreements and hear more about what people want to see there, because we know that their desires are far beyond just a park there, and we also are going to be committing to a park in the area as well. So that'll be part of it. It's not going to be an either or situation. It will be a both and.
How is that funded? That, I mean, if things are
Yeah,
at,
that's still one of the things
below market rents, how do you as a developer make money from that?
Well, I don't think anyone's saying that they only want to have below market. I think it's a really generally a very well determined kind of from social science that you actually need diverse communities there. What we're hearing is they want for rent and for sale homes, and the opportunity to actually create an ecosystem both on the commercial side and the residential side that allow people to be brought back into this neighborhood stabilize and grow within the community, be able to be supported by affordable housing, and hopefully be able to then save enough to look at affordable for sale housing as well. And we think that, again, from a social science standpoint, trying to say that you can kind of establish roots in one place and then but you can only afford something way out in the burbs doesn't really work. We want to keep that ecosystem within a single neighborhood. Just like if you're going to start a small business in the neighborhood, we don't want you to have to then be forced, once you grow beyond that small business or that startup. We want to give people a wide diversity of commercial spaces in order to grow in place. We think that that's important both on the commercial and the residential side of things, because moving your family not only costs money, but it also disrupts things like school outcomes. Those are really, really well documented, that every move impacts a child's education 4 to 6 months. And so that's part of the reason why really it's not about creating an affordable project or a market project. It's putting really a broad spectrum of housing so that you can make it, you can start at one place and graduate up through in a single neighborhood, which really isn't available, unfortunately, in Denver right now, given the housing crisis that we have. And homes that I'm sure in Park Hill sound inexpensive at $800,000, but or I guess the median price is now what, $600,000 or $700,000, whatever it is. It sounds.
My little alley house with no garage, I could probably sell it for 600,000.
Excuse me, can I just ask? Hi.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just about this community benefit agreement, doesn't seem to be a transparent process if it's a benefit agreement with the city and some people. Can you tell us more who's in these negotiations? I mean, if it's the city, it should be a transparent process, right? Ken, you there? Ken, this is a question.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. I was sorry. I was saying there are actually two processes there. One is with the city, which is negotiating with the city, right? The city attorney's office, CPD, DOTI, all the different departments host around affordable housing, nest around neighborhood economic stabilization. And then a separate process is there's a community group that is forming independent of me. Actually, I don't know who they are yet, but I believe they received some grant dollars from a foundation. And so they're organizing themselves independently. So I know that they are going to, one of the first step in their process is to establish kind of a common set of values from their standpoint. And then they'll, once they kind of understand what their common set of values are, they'll reach out and we'll probably start that negotiation process. It's really kind of an iterative thing to make sure that both since they're both legally binding agreements, they can't necessarily conflict with each other, but they may cover different topics. And so they need to kind of go.
Just make sure I'm hearing what you're saying? So you're saying there is a process that's going through the city's world, the city attorney and the transportation people and those types, which I assume that would be a transparent process because it's the city. And then there's this other one that's probably being funded through the Denver Foundation, like through James Royce. Is that?
It's through a foundation. I don't actually know which foundation it is.
But a different process, and somehow then those will have to mesh at some point, or not?
Yeah.
At some point they would have to mesh. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Amy and Leslie, there's this back and forth about the CBA. Does anybody want to comment at that just to make the group aware, or just leave it to the chat?
Okay, dumb question. What's CBA? This is Jackie. What is CBA?
I'll let Leslie or Amy jump in there.
Here, I'll jump in. So I worked on the CBA for the Broncos Stadium District Master Plan. A CBA is a community benefits agreement. In the case of the Stadium District, Sun Valley neighborhood organized, got some grants, got some lawyers to work with the potential developer on things like parkland, affordable housing plan, et cetera, et cetera. Now that Stadium District Master Plan is in purgatory right now because there is no developer, excuse me. But in the case of the Park Hill Golf Course, it would be something similar. Some community members would get together, they would get some legal help, they would form an organization that, and Kenneth, please correct me if I'm wrong, that would somewhat negotiate with the developer, Westside, to include things like how much parkland is there, how much affordable housing might be there, what other infrastructure things might be there. But here's my question in the chat. It was my understanding going forward with the Stadium District Master Plan is that this is not a legally binding agreement, especially if the land then gets sold to a secondary vertical developer. Oftentimes when the community is negotiating on a large plot of land, they're negotiating with a horizontal developer who's putting in infrastructure like streets, water, energy, that sort of thing. But then the plots might get turned over to other vertical developers who put up buildings. So there's a question mark in my mind about how legally binding a CBA is in this case, but I don't know that maybe Kenneth should answer or that either, or I should answer. Maybe the answer should come from whoever the community hires legally. And I don't know who that is because as someone pointed out, it hasn't been very clear on who the CBA is between exactly. But I'll quiet myself now. And Kenneth, if you want to add in or submit to anything or suggest any other comments,
Yeah,
let me know.
I'd be happy. So, and I actually, I did the community benefits agreement and development agreement on the Gates Rubber Factory site way back in the day. And which is actually, I actually don't know that there was a CBA on the Stadium District, but in any case, the way that community benefits agreements are done is that they actually are absolutely binding on the vertical developers as well. So let me just be absolutely clear on that. They are 100% applicable to vertical developers. So that it is something that actually goes back to the building permits that are around that. And so things like affordable housing and things like living wage and things like all of those things can be binding on the vertical developer if that is the nature of the agreement. And so yeah, that whole question about whether or not they're binding on the vertical developer, if it actually impacts the vertical developer, then it is absolutely 100% binding, because then they don't get the building permits in order to build a building. For example, for around affordable housing, it would be likely driven by what the lessons that we learned from really old development agreements, which weren't CBAs but were agreements like at the Stapleton Airport redevelopment, did not have the appropriate controls in them, whereas at the Gates Rubber Factory we had when we negotiated that, we had appropriate controls. And one of the main features there was to not have a big box retail. And so that again was binding. You couldn't get a permit for a big box retail development because that agreement was in place. Which prevented a Costco from happening over there, which is fine.
Right.
That was what the community wanted. So
Kenneth, would it be possible for you to return next month and maybe we ask somebody from the city also to give a more formal presentation, allow some time for questions from the community?
I can't speak for the city because I don't know what their
I'm not asking
obligations
you
are.
to, I'm asking, we'll
Yeah.
ask the city, but if you could.
Absolutely. I'm just looking at my calendar. Now that we're past spring break, it's a little bit easier. But let me just see.
Good, I would appreciate that, and I appreciate, Ken, your involvement over the last few years with GPHC, and you present a lot of factors that I think are worthy of consideration, and there are other factors involved as well, like preserving land that will be there in perpetuity. And so that's the other side of the coin. And it would be good to have a dialogue with people from both your stand and the city that could explain more of this and answer questions.
Yeah, Rick,
Lana,
I appreciate. Oh, is Jackie was putting in there that it's Cinco de Mayo. I actually may have something on that day that will prevent me from being here, but let me see if I can move that. This
If
process
not-
is yeah.
Yeah, Ken, if not, let's also look at the June meeting as a possibility. Okay.
Absolutely. And Rick, I appreciate that too. I think I was, reflecting out obviously on just kind of how we're living in a time where a lot of folks have different opinions about things. And it doesn't mean that, I think those disagreements and different opinions totally work. I think we just need to make sure that we have the facts and we just try and, have some honest dialogue about it. So happy to have that. Thank you for inviting me into this. I've been on many calls, but haven't, have just been listening in mostly. So thank you
Great.
for the opportunity. Yep.
You bet. And thank you for being here. Appreciate you showing up. And Lana, I'll work with you and Shane with the city representative and we'll get it on the calendar. Ken, if you could just let us know as soon as possible, that would be great as well.
So through Alana, okay, perfect.
Yeah, you can shoot me an email, Kenneth, and let me know if May and or June would work for you. And we'll get something on the calendar. And did everybody see Nam's comment as he was on his way out that the CBA issue is on the Northeast Park Hill Coalition agenda? Their meeting's next week on Thursday, I believe, second Thursday of the month. So attend that if you want to know more soon.
I realize
Okay.
that was
Hey, Lana,
a can of worms, but I don't want to see the worms get wet.
And I'm sorry if I'm trying to follow on the chat and talk as well, but it sounds like Jackie, you still had a question about legally binding, but only I think Nam answered it correctly, which is as long as it's addressed in the agreement, then it's binding, right? So that was my whole point, right? Not everything in an agreement will actually impact vertical developers, but if it does, then it's legally binding.
But I do want to point out that we have a conservation easement that's being tried to be overturned. So I don't really trust legally binding.
Well, and that's actually another good point, Tracy. The actual words in the agreement matter. And if you read it carefully, the words in the agreement, paragraph, I believe it's 14, is actually called amendment. And so there are mechanisms for that. 301 created an additional step. And we know that there's also misinformation going on about that as well. The 301 did not change the uses that were allowable on the golf course. It changed the process by which the easement could be changed. The lawsuit that some members of SOS issued that was dismissed by the judge also, he addressed that, some of the legal conclusions that were made by some of your friends on this call might not have been actually legally correct. So, again, we just need to keep it all open. And I think that there are very clear statements in the easement about how it can be amended. And at the same time, I think, what we're trying to just say is the agreement itself, the words in the agreement and the easement require it to be an 18-hole regulation length golf course. We don't think that's the best use out there. Your survey also shows that, as well as the city survey. Your survey also asked if that easement could be removed. What would you like to see there? And over 50% of your respondents actually wanted some form of development, whether it was 25, 50, or whatever percent more. So I think, we just need to, again, allow for some of the dialogue to happen. And, the fortunate thing is that it'll go to a citywide vote, and we'll be able to have a lot of people involved in that discussion. The unfortunate thing is that the local voice will be somewhat minimized by that. But I think that at the end of the day, when we think about the possibilities for both parkland and very necessary housing and business opportunities for that neighborhood, which they desperately need, we can probably have both here, right? It's more of an and situation than an or, and we'll let the courts decide if whose legal interpretation is correct on that. So.
All right, I'm gonna call it. Yeah, I don't believe anybody on this call has made up any facts previously, and I'm going to take some umbrage with that. So I am going to call it night. Thank you.
I didn't say that you did. I think I
suggested my friends on this call. You did. So thank you. Have a good night. We'll see everybody in May.
All right. Have a good night. Bye.